Hi everyone. All right, to begin, my name is Kadim. I'll be presenting tonight. Without further ado, as Donnie said, let's get into our presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so just a quick note, I can't see any of you, right, because it takes my full screen. But if you do have questions, I encourage you to stop. Unmute your mic and just go. I can't see you, so if you raise your hand, I won't be able to tell. So unmute your mic and talk to me. This is going to be a very interactive presentation. And by the end, we're going to have a little workshop. So you guys will have a chance to interact with me, ask questions, question and answer. It's going to be really productive. The more you guys give to this presentation, the better it will be for you, and you guys will come up with a lot of insights. So let's go. All right. So we're presenting on 5-year plan tonight. We'll be talking about why a 5-year plan matters, how to create a 5-year plan, what a 5-year plan is, of course. But before we do any of that, I want to tell you why we create a 5-year plan. And to do that, I have a story. A couple years ago, I was invited for the first time to a private island off the coast of Florida. Obviously, I was very excited. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I dressed up phenomenally for the day. I met up with my friend Gus. We met up around lunchtime, and then we met up with the captain. And the captain told us that we would be heading around 60 miles, not 60 miles, 20 miles out. And it would take us about 60 minutes to get there. So, we had some time. So, as we took off from the dock, we went out and figured that around 30 minutes in, there's not much more to see than water. So we went down into the cabin, and this is what the cabin looks like. First, let me just say this was the most beautiful boat I've ever been on in my life. The plush sheets, as you can see, wood, there was glass. The bathrooms were amazing. I didn't even know that bathrooms could be that big on a boat. And as I was admiring all of this, I was impressed. But you could tell that Gus was used to it. He had done this boat thing before, so I admit it was my first time doing something like this. So as we were sitting there, I heard shuffling above, like the captain was running. And as a black man, when someone starts running, you start wondering, well, what's going on? The captain comes downstairs and he looks at us and he's panting and he goes, guys, there's a storm coming. I remember that moment clearly in my mind, because I remember in that moment, there was nothing I could do. My fate was out of my hands. All I could do was wait. And then the storm came. Storm came. It rocked the boat. And eventually, nothing. What I didn't realize is that during the storm, I had passed out. The ship was okay, but when I woke up, the captain was gone. I had no idea what happened to the captain. Gus woke me up, and thankfully, because Gus and the captain were speaking before the ship left the dock, Gus knew at least the direction that we were heading to for the private island. And so Gus made an executive decision. Of course, he was used to, being on a boat and stuff like that. So he decided to turn the boat around and head back to the mainland in the opposite direction. Well, it's not a bad choice. As we got back to the mainland, I had many questions. We were safe, thank God. But where on earth was the captain? I was shook. I didn't know what happened to him. My second question, I must be honest, I wondered if I would get my money back, because, well, it had cost a lot to go. But if I'm to get serious for a minute, the most important question that I had at the end of that trip, as we got back, was what if Gus didn't know the direction that we were heading in? Just imagine how differently my life would have turned out. We made this very night possible. And so with that said, life is like being on that ship. We have three options. The first, we can be like the captain. Now, despite having all the necessary tools to face that storm, he knew exactly where he was going and he knows how to navigate a ship. When adversity struck, the captain disappeared. That's one option. And then, well, he can be like me, who, well, one, passed out, but also my life was essentially left to chance. I mean, 50-50. If Gus didn't know where we were going, well, I don't know where I'd be today. Or, well, because Gus knew where he was going, well, I trusted him, and my life was basically in his hands. And then the third option, well, is to be like Gus. Gus knew where he was going, so much so that even when adversity struck, he knew to change direction and get back home, go on another path. That is why we create a 5-year plan. To know where we're going. Very important. Moving on. From here on out, questions are open. Ask me questions, stop, and let's create this conversation together. So, before we even get to creating a 5-year plan, which we will get to by the end of tonight, I hope you guys have a pen and paper near. If you don't, right now, now would be a good time to perhaps grab one close, keep it close. I would advise you to not use your phone when you get to this activity. Perhaps your laptop would be fine, but just not a phone to keep, distractions to a minimum. But with that said, there's some things that we have to think about when we go to create a 5-year plan. Let's dive into those things. Number one, focus on the things that make you most happy. I'm sure it is no surprise to any of you that happiness is on the decline as social media is being used more. Our generation is one of the most unhappy generations ever. Why is that happening? Well, I think it's because we compare regular life, which is awesome, on social media to compare to people's highlights. I don't think that's fair. My suggestion, your life is pretty awesome. Focus on what would make you happy. Maybe that person goes on vacation, that person has nice washes, and that person, has a nice car. But what would make you most happy? Could it be something that has nothing to do with money? Could it be something that's not on your social media at all? Focus on what makes you most happy, and that requires some self-reflection. Number 2, SMART goals. SMART goals, for those of us who don't know, it's fine. I was introduced a couple weeks ago to this as well. SMART goals is an acronym. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Now, I don't think all of these letters are necessarily useful because I think, hear me out, the A, for example, achievable, is something that I think we all kind of understand, right? You know what's achievable and you know what's realistic are for you. I think you kind of understand, well, I know I'll never get to the NBA. That's realistic for me. So I'm sure you know what's realistic for you. But the S is not to be underestimated. Measurable, specific, and timely. Those are the 3 letters that I would like to highlight. And why do I say that? Well, how many times have we heard the goal, next year I want to be a better person. Next year I want to lose weight. Next year I want to make more money. Do those sound like good goals? Well, perhaps. But I wouldn't say so. Why? Well, let's explore it just a little bit. How do you know when you've made enough money? Based on that goal. Would $5 be enough? Would $100,000 be enough? How do you know when you lost the weight? How do you know for how long you'll be losing the weight? Is it going to last 3 months, 2 weeks, the rest of your life? Well, good luck. But you understand what I'm saying. So, an important thing to keep in mind is we need SMART goals, specific or SMT goals, specific, measurable, and timely. Okay. The third thing, the current you is not ready for your goal. Change must happen. Now, what do I mean? This is not to discourage you. You're pretty awesome. Remember that. But what I mean is, the current you isn't ready for your goal because if you were, well, you would have had it already. The idea of a goal is that, well, you're going to rise to meet the challenge, to be the person that can get that goal, well, quite easily. It's going to be attracted to you. So, for example, let's take one of the goals that we just had. To get to $100,000 per year. Well, the current you doesn't know enough to contribute to the world to get you 100K. But with time, as you progress towards your goal, as you change, you will be. I'm confident in that. Also remember, it doesn't necessarily mean that you as a person or your values have to change. It could be your environment, it could be your circumstances. Keep that in mind. The final thing is to work backwards. So what do I mean? Focusing on the thing that makes you most happy is the end goal. And then you work yourself backwards to create the 5-year plan. That's how planning works. Why? Because if you start from the you that is at the end, you'll find that there are so many more ways to get to the end goal. Perhaps the current you can't do some of these things, but the future you, well, yeah, you're pretty awesome. So, keep in mind that you're working backwards from the goal, from the place that you're most happy. I'm going to do an example of what it looks like to work backwards. And I came up with a sample goal, which I think we can all pretty much understand. Goal. I want to be offered a full-time position at Tesla. Pretty basic. I'm going to ask for a volunteer in a second, so be prepared. So, the first question, what can I do to achieve this goal? Any volunteers, just unmute your mic and let me hear you.
You can beef up your resume.
You can beef up your resume, that's one. Great, thank you. Another? Keep them coming, keep them coming.
Do some research on the company to just learn more.
Do some research, awesome. That's two, we got two. I know you guys are very smart, so I know you guys have more than that. One of the things I thought of was perhaps LinkedIn. Some of you have set that up already. It's good stuff. All right. Let's look forward and change this question slightly. So from what can I do? And the question becomes this, keeping in mind that we're working backwards with all of the other things that we said before. The question becomes, what would get a full-time position at Tesla? Not what can I do, but what would get a full-time position at Tesla? And I answered this question, and there were so many options that I came up with that I'll list them here. Knowing people at Tesla, research on their prime market, and I had to go over to the next slide here. Starting a small tech company in line with Tesla's mission. Learning about the company's stock market, goal structures, business model, future plans, etc. Interning at Tesla, YouTube, entering competition where Tesla recruits from, starting or joining a club in university regarding EVs, researching, writing papers. The list goes on and on and on. No, I don't think there's anyone in this room that can say that if you did every single thing on this list right here, Tesla would have no choice but to hire you. I think we can all agree on that, right? But then why didn't this come to our mind in the beginning? Well, perhaps we are thinking about the current us, which is fine, because the future you, well, will know a lot more stuff. Perhaps right now, for example, you don't know how to start a small tech company. That's fine. But you can learn, can't you? There's YouTube, there's Google, there's mentors for that. Perhaps you don't have an internship right now, but you can. And we all have phones, so we can start a YouTube channel on Tesla. So the point is, starting from the end opens up a lot more in your window of opportunity, your field of vision to achieve. That's something that's very important to keep in mind. All right. Awesome. All right. Now we've come to the most interactive part of this session. So for right now, I need everyone to grab pen and paper or a laptop. And I'm going to be relying a lot on Donnie here so that he can help me to monitor if there's people in the chat or any raising hands or anyone that, would... I'm trying to talk to me, but I don't see them. I need everyone to grab a piece of paper, get out an open Word document. We're going to need you to write. It's very important. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to just go do that. All right. So we have an activity. The first thing that I want you to do is write down no more than 5 things that you want in 5 years. So, as I said, we're creating our 5-year plan. We're going to work together on this. Write down no more than 5 things that you want in 5 years. Some of you may be asking, why do I say no more than 5 things? Well, one, that's a great question. The reason why we keep it less than 5 is because our brains tend to not want to focus on more than 5 things efficiently. I mean, we can, don't get me wrong. But once you get to a certain point, 7, 8, 9, 10 things, you start to lose how much you can focus on any one of them individually. Ideally, I would say keep it to 3, but no more than 5 definitely, because you start to lose off. I'm giving you a second to write. An important note about as you're writing, it's important to write down what you want, not what you want to do. You understand the difference? For example, let's say your goal is to get to 100K. Then write that down. What you're not going to write down is, I want to work so that I get to 100K. We're not there yet. What I don't want you to write down is just that you want to earn 100K in a year. That's it. No, of course, if you want the job and that's your goal, then fine, write that down. What I am saying is, don't write down how you're going to do it. That's not important right now. Write down what you want, because the first requirement is that you have to want it. You, not your parents or your friends, you have to want it. I'm going to ask for a volunteer I want one goal, and for the rest of this activity, everyone is going to choose one, and then we're going to go through the rest of the steps together. I promise you, this is very useful. I do this every year. I've been doing this since 2014. My 5-year plan worked out, by the way. I continues to do so, and yearly plans and so on. But what I'm saying to you is, we're going to take one and go through it so that afterwards you can fill out the rest of them, and hopefully you can do this every single year, as your goals change and so on. So, do we have a volunteer for one goal?
So, Kadeem, unfortunately, the format kind of restricts the attendees' ability to interact with us.
Okay.
So, I'll say that one of the next big things on my 5-year plan would be my degree. So
Okay.
I guess we can just base it off that.
Sure. Awesome. And your degree is a BS, BA?
I'm sorry. I didn't cut you off. What did you say?
A BS or a BA?
A BS, yes. Accounting.
Bachelor's in Science in Accounting. Awesome. Okay, great. So then, let's use... sorry, who was that? Was that Donnie?
Yes, it's Donnie.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Donnie. So we're gonna... The goal is I want to achieve, within 4-5 years, a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting. Let's move on. Step 2. Write down what you will give in return. A lot of people overlook this point. In the world, getting something and giving nothing doesn't work. It never has and it never will. I want you to get that. If it is a part of you, out of your system tonight. Forget that. I want you to look at, a few successful people in your eyes. But I'll talk about, some people that I know. You can think about Elon Musk. You can think about Jeff Bezos. What does Jeff Bezos give to the world? Amazon. My life is significantly much easier because of Amazon. He's given me that. And in return, he has become the richest man in the world. No, whether or not he deserves his millions or billions is up for debate. But he has given and gotten in return. The same with Elon Musk and the same with, successful people that you think of. They give in return. That's how the world works. Celebrities, for example. They give up a lot of their privacy. Are you willing to give up your privacy to become a celebrity? That is something that many people don't consider. Are you willing to give up your time, control of your time, to become a celebrity? A lot of people don't think about that either. But, write it down now. Also, understand that it doesn't necessarily have to be money. Of course, you can see from my examples. But it can also be, your environment. You perhaps have to move to a different neighborhood, a different country. Perhaps your comfort. You have to give up some of that. I love donuts. But perhaps one of my goals requires me to give up donuts. Could be friends. Could be family. Okay. Donnie, do you want to give us one of the things that you'll give in return for your degree?
Yes, one of the things I wrote down was hard work. So just like really studying and making sure I'm doing everything I need to for class on my end to be able to achieve that goal.
Definitely. So hard work, studying, 100% effort. What will you give in return? Yes. Good. Great. All right. So let's move to step 3. I'm taking it that everyone has that written down. So we're going to move on. No worry. It's not going to move. This is the final slide. So it won't be going anywhere. So don't worry. Step 3. Write down your timeline. Now, I know some people are saying, we're creating a 5-year plan. So then what timeline could there be, right? I hear you. But hear me out. Within the 5-year plan, perhaps you could be looking at, what if I want to achieve it in 4 years? But what if a part of it takes 2, the other part takes 2, and then the final part takes 1? What if it takes 7 years? Write down a timeline. We're going to revisit this after the next step, and then it will make a bit more sense of why that timeline becomes so important. So, we've been through 3 things so far. Write down no more than 5 things that you want, just want, not what you want, not what you're going to do, or what you plan to do, but 5 things that you want in 5 years. Write down what you will give in return once you get that, or in the process of getting that which you want. And the third thing, write down your timeline. All right. Step 4. What do you intend to do to achieve this goal? Now, here we get to the doing part. So, here's how it works with the timeline. 1, the 5-year plan. Yes, well, that will be accomplished in 5 years, right? But then, think about the end goal. What would get me the end goal? And what are all the things that can be done to get to that end goal? That's the first thing. What are all of the possibilities? Whether or not I can do them. All of the possibilities that can get me, well, that can get anyone to what I want. What have you seen? What have you read? What have you heard in media? How do people get to that end goal? That want that you have? Perhaps some of you want to be married in 5 years. What have you seen worked? Well, perhaps you need to get into a relationship. Perhaps you want to move. Well, perhaps one of the things that you need to do maybe is start looking for a job that, in that country or that state or that place. Another thing, well, get a visa to that place. Start researching, ways that people travel to that place. Maybe you can go there, maybe just for 3 months, see what happens. Maybe you'll see an opportunity while you're there. Don't know.